Welcome back, Dad. You're finally home.
I'm taking it back. Why?
Why?
Because I'm a damn good cop.
Can you tell me more about the universe?
You're back. Good.
I found
What
my.
can I
found
love
my
you
badge.
did.
Fast, observantly, like an electronic printer.
Pleased to meet you, Lieutenant W. Freighter Dubois. I am glad to see a man of high qualification. The situation is precarious. What can I help you with, Lieutenant Freighter?
Can I ask you more questions
More
about
lessons
reality?
in basic reality? My favorite part of the day. Go ahead, ask me anything.
What is this?
A bird? A sphenicid? A flightless bird of the polar regions?
Am I really that
Of
awkward?
course you're not, my dear. I'm just terrible at guessing games.
I meant, what is this place
Ah. This is the pier of Rue de Saint-Ghislain, 33A, where the tenants have been kind enough to rent me a slot. Or two.
here? What is the route?
A pre-revolutionary tenement. Old buildings are called tenements, you see. And new buildings, bâtiments. After les bâtiments nouveaux. But 33A and 33B are not nouveaux. They're old. This one used to be 8 to 10 stories
Never thought
tall.
about. Is tenement a
A real
French word?
high-rise by the standards of the last century. Built to mirror the skyscrapers across the bay in the Delta. That was before the war, of course.
Who lived in them?
Mostly the urban middle class, I believe. This was once primo real estate, before the cannons lopped 4 or 5 stories off.
Ha.
Splat, splat.
Yeah.
You could be wrong, but from here it appears as if she's running the brush across her throat in a soaring motion.
No, that's what Cindy the Skull would do.
Wonderful.
You said pale. What is
The
pale?
pale is not, technically speaking, part of reality.
Ah.
Yes. Also, I think we've had enough excitement for today. We do have a case to attend to.
Of course, Lieutenant. Let's try something else.
What do you mean it's not part of reality?
Ma'am, remember you are dealing with a very sensitive and impressionable police officer who is still recovering.
The Lieutenant's right. Let's change topics.
Ah, so I have to
What
talk.
do you want to know?
You could sneak back later when the lieutenant is not here, unless you can convince him to step aside.
I could convince him to step aside because Kim trusts me, but I'm not going to do that right now. Let's point at Cindy.
The girl in the old lady rags?
Yeah.
Looks like a sullen and rebellious member of a teen infraculture.
Infraculture?
Yes. You and I belong to the supraculture. We're common, the herd. The music on the radio, the food in the chain restaurant, those are all too popular for the girl in the old lady rags. She prefers a fantasy world, an infraculture with its own dress code and vernacular. It is an illusion, I'm afraid. There is no refuge from the supraculture.
Okay, now explain the same thing but to a child.
Young people who dye their hair funny colors and wear old people's clothes are stupid, and their little rebellion is self-defeating. All right, what next?
What are you?
What I am not is a basic term of reality.
She smiles.
There may be a way to get her speaking about herself at some later juncture.
What was the RCM?
Nothing more nor less than the de facto law enforcement body of post-revolutionary Revachol, Detective.
Yes, we are the Revachol Citizens Militia.
He's being sarcastic.
You said de facto?
Yes, that means...
That's all for
permit
who I
me
am.
to conclude with this. Who you are to me, and if those authorities drink so hard they need help recalling the basic terms of reality, well, I am here to help.
Alright, let's ask him to walk away now, because it's a high chance, and he's...
Good idea. Just ask him. He won't make a scene.
Cam, can I talk to the man alone
Fine.
for a second?
See? What can he do? You're a grown man.
What is the
Are
pale?
you sure you're sure? Your colleague seemed adamant.
Yeah, what's the pale?
Okay. The pale is the most dominant geological feature of the world, Detective. The separative tissue between the islas It is the interocellular mass.
So is the Pale like?
Achromatic, odorless, featureless. The Pale is the enemy of matter and life. It is not like any other, or anything in the world. It is the transition state of being into nothingness.
If we're surrounded by the Pale, how do we go from one to the other?
Oh, it is so difficult for us.
A squall of birds. Hardware operating in the harbor.
Yeah.
Firm. Self-evident.
It is possible to force dimensions on the Pale. In modern times, we can even compress its latitude, bouncing radio waves from one end to the other, shortening the path.
Neat.
But it is still hard for humans to navigate the Pale without getting lost, or having our minds damaged.
You can damage the mind?
Extensively.
How?
Some say the damage stems from extreme sensory deprivation. Others argue that Pale somehow consists of past information that's degrading, that it's rarefied past, not rarefied matter. They call it the blend over of the self. The Pale does not only suspend the laws of physics, but also the laws of psychology, maybe history even. The human mind becomes over-radiated by past.
Huh.
Who says and who argues?
The logical positivists say, the dialectical materialists argue.
What does this over-radiation feel like?
It feels terrible. Absolutely terrible. International standards strictly limit civilian travelers to 6 days of Pale exposure per year.
It's more for her. Way more.
You're not a civilian passenger?
No, Lieutenant Dubois. I'm entreprenetic business class. I'm cleared and trained for 22 days of Pale transit annually.
Someone else you've met may have been exposed as well. The strange grey-haired woman in her lorry.
Do lorry drivers pass the Pale?
Yes. Carried in the hulls of airships. It's a horrific job. Automation will abolish it soon.
You should ask the pal driver about this. See what she says.
Definitely. That's what I'm going to do if I can't karaoke yet. Are you
Up to
over-radiated?
my gills, officer.
Is it here?
No, detective. We're safe. It begins there, 6,000 kilometers to the north, and even more to the south, east, and west. You are in the middle of the Isla.
And there?
An uproar of matter, darling. Rising into the Pale. Rolling. Evaporating.
I really
even.
like this idea
Great vision.
of...
The area of transition between the world and the Pale is called Porch Collapse.
What I forgot what they call it in Magic the Gathering, but there's nothingness between worlds as well.
Imagine a grey coronal mist, cold vapor marked by spores
I always
of an
liked that
opportunistic
idea.
microorganism, a mold that's adapted to grow at the edge of the unrest.
Even when I
It's
couldn't put it into words, like Majora's Mask has it. That sort of walking area between Termina and Hyrule.
the most disco thing you will ever see.
What are the physical
It's
qualities?
difficult to describe, or even measure. Something whose fundamental property is the suspension of properties. Physical, epistemological, linguistic. The further into Pale you travel, the steeper the degree of suspension. Right down to the mathematical. Numbers stop working. No one has yet passed the number barrier.
Huh.
It may be impossible.
I went through the Pale. From the sound of it, our detective probably went through the Pale. What is intropanetics?
Entreprenetics.
Yeah, that word.
There's the scientific study of the Pale, or a recent iteration of it by way of Grad.
Grad.
The study of the Pale reaches back 6,000 years. The Pericarnassians called it the Western Plain.
They had not traveled the entire circumference of the Pericarnassian Super E-Solar. It was not merely in the west, it was everywhere, even then, surrounding them.
Did they cross it? The Western
There
Plain?
are signs of pre-modern crossings. Successful navigation of the Pale relies not just on technical know-how, but intensive psychological preparation. Some of these tactics have been known for thousands of years.
What's changed?
Nothing. We remain powerless before the Pale. The only real advance in Pale transit is the speed with which an aerostatic craft can pierce it. Less exposure leads to less effects later.
A plane?
Hybrid airships, Detective. Conventional rotors or jet engines no longer add velocity after the point of reference for motion is suspended, once you've crossed from near Pale to far Pale. In essence, we throw them in and they come out the other end. If we throw them precisely.
If we do not?
Then they don't.
Gone, like a skipping stone beneath the surface.
Ah, sweet. Skipping stones. How much Pale is there compared to the
The
world?
Pale outweighs reality 2 to 1. There is more Pale than there is matter, and the ratio is slipping.
To our detriment,
What
or
do you think, Detective?
shrinking? There is more and more. It's growing. There's more and more of the Pale.
Precisely. One of the few measurable effects of the Pale is that it is expanding at an unknown rate. An intuitive conclusion of that development is that one day the Pale will cover everything. But this sort of talk is mostly left to extremists.
I mean, it's stay silent. I don't.
Most people, and indeed most private and government sector organizations, entire civilizations and religions even, find handy ways to ignore or downplay that knowledge. I suggest you do the same.
Gulp.
It doesn't look like you're doing the same. The suggestion was meant in earnest, Detective. Live life.
Let's return to reality.
Yes, sweet reality. But before we do, tell me, Detective, is this the first time you're hearing this? Do you really not remember anything?
I sometimes sense vague shadows of a past, and it's not good.
Then tell me, what do you think of the Pale?
It's advancing not only stopped with immediate total Ruth. Can we be stopped with communism? Still one place that's not been touched by the terror of capitalism. The Pale! Powerful anti-communist force. Didn't sound very liberal. You're right, it's disco.
You really didn't know. This does not spell good for the investigation, Detective. If you don't know even this, then...
I'll handle this, it's under
I
control.
hope so. I truly do. If I may suggest, hold on to your colleague, Kitsuragi. I ran a check on him and he is very competent. In the meanwhile...
Some of that assurance is meant for herself,
Yep.
as much as it's meant for you. She must have a lot on the line here.
You have me. I will assist you in any way I can, even if we have to do it one basic term at a time.
Good. You have not passed out from it. Perhaps I worried for nothing. Are we still on the reality lowdown, or should we do actual police work now?
You needn't have worried.
But I did. Anyway.
Aw.
Damn it, you're a grown man, the lieutenant thinks. Shouldn't have gotten protective hair.
Alright, let's get to
Good
work,
luck,
Lieutenant.
detectives.
You alive? You okay?
The woman is still hunched over the railing, her head swaying to the music.
Huh? What is it? What do you want?
Before I came, you seemed away.
She's just a distracted old woman.
You hear that, Lowman? I don't think your partner likes you spending too much time with me.
Wait, why is that?
Nothing. I just don't think she's connected to anything.
It's because of the Pale. He doesn't want your frail mind caught up in it. And this woman has spent time in the Pale. A lot of time.
The routes you drive are unusual, aren't they?
Some of them. Some of them are like home to me now. I would say the routes I drive are usual to me.
What routes?
Lomonosov's Land, Udajnaya Zemlya, Western Plain.
Yep, where it
the
is.
Transcatlia Magistral. You for 1A. Autostradas do Mirador. All the good ones. The deep trenches. Where the bluebirds fly.
I'm sort of an expert in blacking out. You should take better care of yourself.
You're right, Lowman. I'm the one who should take my health more seriously. Thank you for looking out for me.
A correct appraisal. You're quite shabby.
Is that all you woke me up to say?
I think I know what's going on with
And
you.
what is that?
You're a pale driver.
Great. He asked the Pines rep about the bail, and now he's talking to everyone about it. Fine then. Just try not to black out again, and don't contemplate. We don't have time for that.
Oh, I'm contemplating, Kim. I'm drawing existential conclusions from this. Yeah, no, just for detective work, that's all I need for now. Everything is related to the pale. My condition, the case, everything. It's all... Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming...
That is exactly what I didn't want you to think.
Oh, no.
Ma'am, my partner wanted to know if you work in pale transport.
No offense. But your partner? Seems like a bit of an idiot.
Oh.
Republica. A filterless cigarette from Misk.
I'm not an idiot. I'm a detective with RCM. Republica. That's not very
Maybe
healthy.
Spell transportation. Life is transitory.
I blacked out from a night of heavy drinking, lost all memory of the world.
Like Gabriel Buenguerro in Pergunte a Poeira. You're the opposite of me, then. I remember everything. Even things I never knew.
Things you never
the
knew?
smell of liquor on Gabriel's lips after the shoot. In the motor park. The roses on the day of Franco Negro's coronation. On the grand stairs of Ryle. The smoke from the fowling piece when Dolores Day was shot. The look on her face, like an orgasm. The wound in her chest. My hand in my father's hand. Except I never had a father. And I never shot her innocent Dolores Day.
Of radiation?
Heroic doses, Harifia. Heroic.
Isn't that
Thought
dangerous?
insertion? Dithering? The Grad Catala Magistral?
Huh.
It's more than dangerous. It's sad.
Sad.
But at first I had to make a living. Now, when you've seen it all go away like that, rolling off like the sea, and then come back to this, what are we doing here? For thousands of years, Gabriel. It doesn't have to be like this. We can just give up. We can just become a vapor.
How's it look like?
Looking into the ocean at night, in the dark. You
And?
cannot see it, but you know it's there. And it's big, bigger than anything. Bigger than all the other things combined.
Bigger than all things combined. What does it feel like?
Nothing. Until it starts. When you are deep enough. Then, for me, it's like autumn. Dark, gray, and orange. The orange of street lights and the color of streets in the electric light. It smells like autumn too. It smells terrible.
Oh.
Nostalgia. Cooped up in the cabin, shaking. Terrible nostalgia. For yourself. For humans. It's too much to bear. She loves it.
How do you pass through
In
it?
the belly of an airship, behind the stair windows. So you don't look straight into it. It's not advised to look into it.
Not on this lorry, then?
No, the same one, a roller. They all are nowadays. Special wheels for connecting to the floor of the hold.
The wheels all small and round. Multi-axle trailers.
Notice that. One last thing. You said we could just become vapor?
Yes.
No elaboration.
I'd rather have what I have than what you have. I would rather have what you have than what I have. I feel I already have what you have in some way.
They say there is a point. One that I have not crossed. In the Pell, super deep. If you stray too far, of course, on the U41A, or in Lomonosov's land, where every step you take is one step further from home, no matter the direction. It's a point you cannot come back from. Your mind becomes so radiant with the past, there is a flip. Instead of writing, it erases memory, nearing some kind of indescribable finale. Maybe you've been down the motorway south?
Yeah. The motorway
It's a
south?
story as lone horsemen tell. Lone horsemen, Jerife, not Pell drivers. Way beyond the established Pell that's lit by radio frequencies. where it goes silent and dark, and the process begins. Erasure, kilometer by kilometer, in any direction. The motorway south is a road you cannot come back from.
What's at the end?
No one knows what's at the end. I've only glimpsed the beginning.
Oh.
I've only felt it in the distance, when I was a child. A child rowing on the lake.
Motorway south.